Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. I also want to say hello to those viewers on PhillyCAM TV as well as WPPM-LP. When this happens, it will be, excuse me, later than St. Patrick's Day, because that's one thing we're going to go into. But this man that I have on here really doesn't need an introduction in Philadelphia. He's a legend. He made us feel good in the mornings, and as a consumer reporter for over 22 years on CBS 3/CBS News Philadelphia. He also was a big part of Philadelphia happenings, from the Pope when he visited Philadelphia to the St. Patrick's Day parade, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, to gay, gay and lesbian and LGBT, those rights in reference to Pride Month. He is also the professor on his Facebook page. And today, the students that watch this live YouTube, StreamYard, slipped it, but it is time to pay the professor. And he is going to learn today how the professor is going to get paid of your tuition that you owe him for all these years. The man himself, Jim Donovan. Jim.
Hello.
It is an honor, a pleasure, and the best to come here on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, Joey. I was so excited. I told our Facebook class people, our book face class, as we call it, that I was going to be here. So hopefully we do have people pop in. But just looking forward to a conversation just keep it in the mix. And I'm glad you're going to show me how this podcast thing works, because, of course, I had mentioned after I retired in December, I figured I was just going to, relax and sit on a beach somewhere. And then we were doing our Facebook Lives, and they were getting so many viewers. I mean, we're averaging usually 15 to 30,000 people were watching the live hits. That someone said, you should do a podcast. So then we've started exploring that. And the plan is, hopefully, fingers crossed, probably something in the beginning of the summer, probably either June or July is when the thing will launch. So I've got a kind of a concept in my mind. One of my past interns, who then became a news producer, she is spearheading this with me, and hopefully we'll have some word on that at the beginning of the summer.
Okay. Well, today, like I said, the Consumer Reporter is going to learn a cost-effective version of doing a podcast. And the suggestions you gave me off here, I'd toss them out the door. Because what I started to tell you about this is much better. I mean, much, much better. And you could do it in more ways than you think.
Okay.
And plus, like I said, in reference to this will go to YouTube, but I'm also going to explain, and you just heard me in the introduction, we just started to take this podcast to the community access media called PhillyCAM in Old City. So it's actually going to be aired later. That's why I had him sign a release form, which I don't have access to iCloud, just to let you know, so I couldn't get it. But I do have it. So I'm assuming, I'm taking it as that you signed it. So
yes, I did.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, So
I'm like, whatever. I'll sign whatever. What is this? Yes. Okay.
Well, we're gonna, like I said, we here on this podcast is going to support you in yours.
Well, I appreciate that.
And believe me, when I told him off air, just about blew his mind. Because I will say that, one, before we get to how Jim got to before he came to Philadelphia, we're going to get to that in a moment. But I'm going to say that for his podcast, I have guests that would love to be on his and share. I have a guest who does programs for child safety. I also have a guest for you that did the last interview with John Lennon before he was shot and before he was murdered in 1980. And I've had her on the podcast twice. I will also give you an email. I don't know how busy this person is. I will say that she is a model, celebrity. She is very good friends with me on Instagram, and I've had her on the podcast by the name of Carol Alt. I'm going to send you her representative's email and see if she can come on your podcast.
Well, that's good. I mean, we've got the first 20 episodes. We've already got kind of a rundown for all of them. So, but yeah, the more the merrier. The more people I can think of. Again, it's just we're trying this as something new. Since retiring, I thought, well, I do have some free time. Let me figure out what will work, and we're just trying to come out with a focus for the thing. Yeah,
and like I said, in reference to that, we're going to do everything possible. I'll give you how I got other guests that are going to be on here, how I got them, and some of them I actually even got off of Instagram, just to let you know.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah. So the professor is getting his lesson today, and as of right now, we have 4 people watching. So it may be 4 of your students from your book face class. They don't tell me who they are. If they comment, I will see them.
I'm just curious about the whole format. I just like this. It's a very clean screen that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, like I said, this is live. We're actually live on YouTube right now as we're talking. So let's get this conversation really going now. Jim, how did we get started? How did you start your TV career up to Philadelphia?
Well, I'm originally from New York City, from Staten Island, one of the 5 boroughs. And when I was young, kids would be playing outside and I'd be inside watching the news. A little strange. My father used to go, "There's something the matter with that one." Yeah. And I'm like, And I would watch the news literally, from the minute I got home while I was doing my homework. There was a 4 o'clock news, a 5 o'clock news, a 6 o'clock news, 7. I mean, it was crazy. Yep. And I would bounce between stations, looking at the different anchors, trying to figure out, why does this station have one bit of information versus another station? And over the years, that just, I was just a news nerd. I did really well in, social studies and current affairs and stuff like that. So when I went off to college, I went to Seton Hall University, which is up in North Jersey. Seton Hall is in South Orange, New Jersey. And I majored in communication. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really a great student. I was good in the subjects that I enjoyed: English, history, psychology. Wasn't great at math, wasn't great at science. I think, to be honest with you, back then, if they were diagnosing people, I'm sure I would have had ADHD or something, because I was the kid that was always looking out the window. What's going on? Oh, there's the janitor. He's mowing the lawn type thing. So my attention span, unless you really grabbed me and reeled me in, I was kind of out there. So, but I went to Seton Hall, majored in communication. And to be honest with you, I was just very fortunate that I seemed to always be in the right place at the right time. And I had some pretty good mentors. I finished my bachelor's degree in about 3 years. I took some summer classes and stuff like that. And Seton Hall had a very good communication program. They have a very good college radio station that everyone in the New York area, New York City area can hear. And in the very last semester of my 3rd year, I thought, well, I better take an internship. So I applied, and fortunately, I only applied for one internship, and I got that. And that was at a station called WOR in Secaucus, New Jersey, which was in northern New Jersey.
before you go any further, I am a Jersey boy, so I know of WOR. So I know about Rollin Smith and Michelle Marsh, and when Howard Stern had his late night TV show on there.
I answered the phone in the newsroom when people would call in to complain about Howard Stern. Because it was Saturday nights. It was after the newscast. And I would tell them, well, turn the channel. I don't know what to tell you. I'm the only one in this building besides the security guard. I don't know. No one's torturing you to watch this thing. But it was many people around the country still remember Channel 9 because it was known as a superstation. It was like WGN in Chicago.
Yep.
And so I had an internship there. At the time, there was a very nice man, Tom Dunn. He was the main news speaker. Yep. And Sarah Lee Kessler, who then went on to be New Jersey News, their health reporter. Yep. So we had a noon show, and we had a 8 o'clock show called News 9 Primetime.
Yep.
And I got an internship there. And fortunately, at the very end of the internship, they had an opening, one full-time but no benefits opening.
Right.
And I thought, well, all right, I'll go for the interview and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And it was we had about 6 or 7 interns at the time. And the other interns they did a really good job of networking. You know, one person was babysitting for one of the managers. Another one was helping teach tennis to somebody else. And I didn't do that. I just showed up for my shifts.
Yep.
I would do the work, the grunt work, when everyone else was networking.
Yep.
So I interviewed, and then a few days later, I get a phone call from the news director that he wanted to offer me the job. And my initial response was like, well, who turned it down? Because I couldn't have been your first choice.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. During my interview, one of the questions they asked me, it was the news director, Tom Petner. He's since passed away. Nice man. He used to scare me at the time.
Yeah.
But he said, what do you like about the station? And I told him a few things. And then he said, well, are there things you don't like? Well, at this point, I didn't think I was getting this job. So I said, this place is screwed up. I said, the communication is horrible. And I said, and I had pointed out a few occasions where we had breaking news was called into the newsroom and no one would listen to me because I was the intern. And I said, we missed this story and you missed this story. We're way behind everybody else because no one wanted to listen to the intern that looks like he's 12 years old because I looked really young at the time.
Right.
So he offers me the job and I start a few days later. I think I graduated on a Thursday or Friday from Seton Hall, and then I started work on Monday. And I went into his office. Thank you for the opportunity. And he said, well, I appreciate your candor and your honesty during the interview. And I said, oh, well, thank you. And he said, don't let it happen again. And I was like, yes, sir. And I got a job as what's known as a production assistant. Most stations don't even have them anymore, but it's basically the entry-level position where you would go, you'd answer the phones, you'd open the mail, you'd deliver scripts, you do everything. Someone needs their dry cleaning picked up, you go pick up the dry cleaning. They need a car dropped off. So I did that for a short period of time. So this was in May. And then several months later, I got laid off.
Yeah.
The station had been sold and they were doing budget cuts and last one hired, first one fired. And I was like, well, this is not great. What kind of career is this that I've just gone to school? So the fortunate thing was while I was in college, I also had a job at an airline. I don't know if you remember, but remember People Express? It was kind of like the Northeast version of Southwest Airlines. It was a no-frills airline based out of Newark.
Right.
It started in the early 1980s, and I had a job. I had worked at the airline as a flight attendant, and when I took the TV
job, stories about that.
When the TV job, I kept the airline job part-time just to keep my benefits. So the good thing was, while I was laid off in TV, I just went back and flew full-time as opposed to just part-time.
Right.
And a few months later, the station called me back. We now have room in the budget. We can bring you back. And the funny thing was, I said, well, I'm not interested. And one of the bosses started yelling at me over the phone. He said, this is the biggest mistake you're ever going to make in your career. And I said, well, that's good. I'm glad I'm making it at the beginning and not later on when I have a mortgage and a family to take care of.
Right,
so what happened was about a month or two after I declined the job, I was still flying.
Yep.
The station called me because they were doing they had a talk show called, it was called People Are Talking. It was Richard Bay and Renee Hambly were the hosts of the show.
I remember that show.
So the producer,
Richard Bay, though.
The producer of the show was a woman named Molly Barber, who used to be Molly Barber of Romper Room fame. So she had called me because we were friends. Yeah,
I remember Romper Room. Oh my God, this Molly was
with the magic,
that show. Oh, okay.
Yeah, with the magic mirror.
Yeah,
and Molly had called me. She said, "Look, we're doing a segment about service people, and we're having waiters and waitresses, and we're having bartenders and people that work in retail stores." She goes, "Do you think you could bring a few flight attendant friends to the studio?" I said, "Sure." So I brought it. We went in and did the show. I think I made some comment at one point where they interviewed me on the air. And on the way out, I swung by the newsroom, and the man that yelled at me 2 months earlier, I saw him. He said, "Well, how's that thing you're doing at the airline?" I said, "My job? It's going well, thank you." And he said, "Well, look, we've got a part-time, flexible assignment. Would you be interested in this?" Their station was coming up for relicensing, and they needed me to log all of the shows, like all of the newscasts. He said, "You can work around your flight schedule." I said, "Sure." I said, "How long is it going to last?" And he said, "Probably about 3 months." But, I'm like, "Sure, it's extra money." And literally what I would do is I would fly in from Los Angeles on a red eye, 6 o'clock in the morning, go to the station, take a nap on a sofa for an hour or two, work 5 or 6 hours, then fly back out the next day. So it was a great way for me to make some extra money. I was able to keep my foot in the door. And then what happened was when that project was over with, they kept assigning me other projects. So, and that went on for about 5 years. So it was like I was able to balance the two. Because you have to understand, a lot of people think TV people make a lot of money. My starting salary at Channel 9 was $16,000. And this is living in the New York City area.
Wow.
Same thing with the flight attendant job. People think, oh, flight attendants make a lot of money in glamorous. That was $13,000. So between the two jobs together, I was able to eke out a living. And one was more physical. The airline job, you have strange time schedules and stuff like that. And the television job was more mental. So, but I did that for a number of years and until, so I started with People Express, which then merged with Continental. So, and then
People's Express. Now I remember that airline. Okay.
So it was People Express, New York Air, Frontier, the old Frontier, and Continental all merged together. And they made a lot of what was Continental at the time. But then they had budget cuts. I thought, what is it with these jobs I keep picking, these industries? So what I did was I took an early retirement package. I think I was 25 or 26, where I left the airline and I was given a lump sum like $10,000 or something, and I had travel benefits for 10 years. So, and then that's when I made the transition into television full time, because at that point I had been offered a job at CNBC, which was in North Jersey.
I remember CNBC.
It still exists. It's their business channel. So, and I went to work there full time, and that was when I ended the airline stuff and went into television full time. Okay,
just to let you know, as you've been talking, you do have at least one who's come out in the open from your Bookface class.
Okay.
At DB Verizon. And he says, "Here from Professor Jim's Bookface." And I turned around as you were talking, and I said, "At DB Verizon, it will be time for you to pay your tuition for the professor." And I laughed at the same time as I was saying it. And he said, "It's in the mail."
Yes, that's what everyone said. So I think we need some context here, Joey, because otherwise so years ago I started a Bookface class. That's what we called it. And then people started calling me professor, and it just took off. And the reason why it was called Bookface was my mother one time, instead of calling it Facebook, called it Bookface. So that's how it got its name. But I've joked over the years that I've sent people their tuition bills, and no one's paying these things, but I continue to do these classes. So that's why, for those people that are new to this whole thing, there's just, and every once in a while I actually have to say that on Bookface class, none of you are paying your tuition. And I think a few people actually thought there was tuition. I'm like, who would pay for this thing? I'm just rambling for a half an hour twice a week. So, I'm curious to see. I wonder who that person is. But yeah, checks in the mail.
I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to show it to you on the screen. DB Verizon, you know her as Dorothy.
Okay. And then I see Marie Freeman is there. She'll love Bookface class.
Yep. Yes. So, and
there's Brittany.
Yep.
Brittany Sampone.
Yep. So thank you, all of you Bookface class members, for coming on. Like I said, today you are going to learn to pay the professor now.
Yeah, learning how to do a podcast.
Yes. Yes. Professor Jim is now going to be a podcast host. And this podcast, the Life with Joey Calvo podcast, is going to be a main support. So the first thing I'm going to say, as I am going to give him the information, is his podcast will always be promoted on this podcast.
That's nice. Thank you.
For as long as, he does it. You see that ticker on the bottom, Jim?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be on that when everything is all set up. So as we're talking, there's a lot of things that are going through the screen. I am friends with a smooth jazz guitarist by the name of Eric Essix. I came across him on YouTube, actually on Spotify first, with a song called Late Night Drive. He has a YouTube channel. I went to him and I said, listen, I do a podcast. Would you be happy to come on? He didn't even wink at it. He said yes. He's been on my podcast twice. And I mentioned about Carol Alt to you in the beginning. She's been on the podcast, but she's been on the audio. Now, for all you Bookface class members who were around, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when there was a meteorologist by the name of Katie Fellinger, she actually was on this podcast, but it's the audio version when we were on Anchor.fm at the time, when we started. And we had her on. We talked about her career at Channel 3 and, her likes and dislikes on it and, the pressure she went through, and her book, which I believe I may still have a copy of it in my files. So we had her on the podcast.
That was a while ago. I'm trying to think. There's always rotating chairs on newscasts.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. Yeah, because it was Katie, and then after Katie was Larissa. I think Larissa filled in for her, and then after Larissa was then Kate Bilo moved from nights to mornings.
Yep.
Katie, this job, it's especially the morning show. It's not an easy shift.
No.
But particularly for parents, and she had she had twins, the girls were very young at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was just, I don't know how parents are able to do this shift.
Yeah.
Because either you're missing the whole beginning of your kid's day, or you're missing the nighttime. If you're the nighttime folks, they're in school when you're already at work, and unless you live close enough to most TV stations, you just don't see your family. It's most stations have the morning side of the day and then the afternoon side of the day, then nighttime.
Yep.
And
so like I said, I had Katie on. We had a nice conversation. And so, like I said, that was 7 years ago when we first started this.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Carol Alt and Eric Essix. But I did have him on about 2-3 years ago again, because at the time he did a actual remake of Ain't No Sunshine with Ruben Studdard from American Idol.
Oh.
We were talking about that and how he met. So I will be happy to share his email with you in reference to that. Maybe you can get him on, and you'll have now, he already explained to me before we started that he's already got 20 guests. We're going to mix
20 rundown, so it's a rundown. So I'm producing this thing like it's a TV show, a TV newscast. So we have topics, we have guests that I want to get, and the first 20, I figure, all right, we'll get 20 in the can, figure out if it works, and we'll see from there. I mean, the good thing is, again, it's like, it's just what I like about the podcast format is, unfortunately, during newscasts, we have what's known as sound bites, 10, 20 seconds. And I've always really enjoyed long format stories, things that you see on CBS Sunday Morning, which I think is one of the best shows ever invented on television with Jim Pauly. I mean, these nice long stories where you can get the essence of whatever the subject is, or like a 60 Minutes, or I used to love watching Dateline in 2020 when Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs when I was a kid.
I remember that.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the podcast, it allows things to breathe, because what folks don't realize is when you're watching particularly a local news show, if you have a half an hour worth of news, so 6 to 6:30, it really isn't a half hour worth of news.
It's 22 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably between 19 to 21 minutes, depending on the station.
Right.
You take out the commercials and the commercial breaks.
Yep.
Then you take out weather, which is normally 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Right.
Then sports used to take up a bigger chunk of the newscast, but not as much anymore, because people will go directly to ESPN or something like that. Right. But when it comes down to it, there's not a lot of information. I used to always call the show News Nuggets. It's like when you used to read USA Today, and there'd be the little thing that would have 3 lines for each state, what happened in each state that day.
Yep.
And, so that's what I like about podcasts and things like this kind of venue, is that it gives things able to breathe. You can put things into context. One of the things that I'm sure you know from watching me on TV, while I didn't take myself seriously, I took my job very seriously, because I felt that facts are very important, that words matter.
Yep.
You can, if you turn around and say homicide is not a murder. There's the 2 different things. They're legal terms. Anytime the folks in the newsroom would go crazy, because since I had an aviation background, I worked for the airlines for years.
Right. Yeah.
Anytime we'd say, well, they evacuated the plane on the runway, and I would be looking, that's not the runway, that's the tarmac. The tarmac's different from the runway.
Yep.
So, and I would top line. We have the ability, when we anchor the news, to instant message the people that are helping to write the stuff in the newsroom.
Right.
And I was, there were times that I'd be like, that's not such and such. I tried to do it in a nice way. I didn't want to seem like a bully. But they would come out at the end of the show and they would laugh, and they're like, oh my gosh, I knew you were going to catch that. I'm like, yes, this is the thing. But a lot of times I'll sit there, and sometimes I would be at home and watch the competition at nighttime, because I already knew what our station was working on, and I watch it. And there would be things that were inaccurate. Yep. And, you can't put context to it. One quick story about, accuracy. So years ago, I was in the newsroom one day, and all of a sudden we got one of the other stations, not our station, got on the air and reported that a plane that was leaving Philadelphia International Airport took off, and a tire fell off the plane.
Right.
And I'm like, how does that happen? It didn't seem logical to me. Now, it can happen, but the way the circumstances didn't make sense. So one of the managers, we need to get you on TV right away. I'm like, I'm not going on TV, because that did not happen. Right. I just knew instinctively. I said, the plane would have been too far away from the airport. By that point, the wheels are already up into the belly of the plane. Like, I knew from aviation.
Right. Yeah.
This other station was on TV for a half an hour talking about how this plane, there's breaking news and the banners and the music, and then they had to come on the air and say it didn't fall off of the plane. Oh, it was off of a truck, and it bounced and hit.
Oh my!
How can you make it? And so the manager came up to me, and she's like, I am so glad. I said, because at the time she was not happy with me. She goes, you need to. I'm like, no, you have somebody else do it, because do not feel comfortable. This is not accurate. We need, and we're waiting for another source. So a lot of people don't realize we don't just put breaking news on TV. We have to usually double or even triple source it.
Right. Yeah.
Like this, I was like, call the airport. If the pilot would have notified somebody if the wheel fell off.
Yep.
And that, there was no confirmation. I said, because it didn't happen.
Yeah. Right.
But for half an hour, the competition, and that's the problem with sometimes, not so much now, but that was like 10 years ago.
Right.
It was always such a rush to get something on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm fine being first, but I need to be right before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that when Jim did the news in the morning, the most interesting thing that I'm going to bring up right now, and the question I'm going to bring up to him in reference to this is this. Jim would come on in the morning at 4:30, and if the Eagles won, he had his Eagles suit on.
Mm-hmm.
If the Phillies won, he had his Phillies suit on.
Or
So
only during Phillies were only during the playoffs because there are too many games.
Right.
Eagles I would wear every Monday after a win. Only a win. Okay.
So the question is, do you still have them?
Yes.
Did you bring them home? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't leaving those things behind. I live. Yeah.
Okay. The other interesting thing I will say about Jim, and I'm going to pull somebody a little bit under the mud on this, and I didn't reach out to him to let him know that I was going to have him on. Or I think I did let him know, was Andrew Kozak. The last video that Jim did was on Andrew Kozak's Facebook and Instagram in reference to his reels. And anybody
that doesn't follow Andrew needs to follow Andrew. The most amazing Instagram and Facebook. He puts these great things together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a lot of fun. I follow him. And I actually attempted to get him on the podcast, but I have learned why you guys couldn't come on at the time. Because a lot
of times, so just so that the viewers know that are watching the podcast now, any kind of appearance that we do goes through management.
Yeah.
And quite often, if it's a physical appearance where we're at emceeing an event or something like that, that's different from broadcast or podcast. So normally, unless there is a relationship between the TV station and, like, a lot of times there's a partnership agreement with a radio station where we'll partner on charitable things. Normally, most television stations will not allow their talent, and that's what we're known. Anybody in front of the camera is known as
on-air talent.
Yeah, they won't allow those people to be on television or on a podcast or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So I understood that. And like I said, when Katie went off the air, that's when I asked her. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, in reference to you, I just came directly to Jim on his book face. And I said, listen, I'm doing this. I do this podcast. Now that you're off Channel 3, let's have you on. Let's get you out there. So not only is he, in a way, he's actually back on TV, but it's going to be aired at a later date, and he's going to be on the radio, which I'm actually going to talk to you about that as well, in reference to Preston and Steve, because you did a live where you went on Preston and Steve. So I know, and but I had to have Jim on, because he made mornings fun, and I will probably get him to do his famous signature voice.
Well, I will tell you that for a morning show is a very different animal. Mm-hmm. In the sense that I always tell people, I always thought of it as television with radio.
Yes.
So, because what you have to understand is at nighttime, most people are, if you're watching the news at 6 o'clock at night, a lot of times you're sitting there watching, paying attention. In the morning, that's not the case. You're making breakfast, you're throwing last bit of laundry in, you're getting the kids' lunches together. Yep. So, you need to kind of, even just the way the stories are written, if it's something that has compelling video, you have to write towards that. Take a look at this. Stop what you're doing for a second. Look at this fire that's on the Schuylkill or something like that. Yeah. But also, I was always very conscious of the fact that we were starting people's days.
Yes, you were.
And, obviously in situations where there was either a big tragedy or some national event, you have to kind of temper that. But for the most part, you want to start with, pleasant stuff. I mean, when I first started anchoring, as you had mentioned, when I first started at the station, I was the consumer reporter for over a decade.
Yep.
And when I first started anchoring, when I was the consumer reporter, I was on my own little island. I did my own stories. I just told them what I was working on. Here we go. I sat on TV, whatever. With the show anchor, which was a completely different skill set for me, you have other people are writing the show, other people are producing it. Pretty much you're the face and the voice of the program, but everyone else is doing the heavy lifting. But you're kind of like the man in the middle of the circus, directing the acts coming back and forth. But you also have to be pleasant. And the first week or two that I was on the morning show, I was filling in before they moved me into the job permanently.
Right.
Someone was on vacation. And I remember leaving from the week going, oh my gosh, who would watch this? This is the most depressing newscast, because it literally was fire, murder, let's go to weather. And I'm thinking, who needs this? I mean, and then when I got the official seat on the anchor desk, we tried to change things and make things a little lighter. And it also depended on the time of day. It depended on, was it the 4 o'clock show in the morning? Was it the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock? Each show had a very different feel. But my whole feeling about morning shows is they should give you enough information so that you can begin your day kind of knowing what's around you in at least a cursory form. It's not a deep dive. That people should read newspapers, which they don't, unfortunately. But those are the things that I thought were very important, and also the chemistry. Right. As you said, Katie Fellinger and I got along fabulously because she was funny. I mean, there's certain people. Misha Johnson, when she was our traffic person, she was funny as heck. My most recently, the person that I just adore is Waukesha Bailey, one of our reporters.
Oh yes.
The nicest, sweetest person, and I mean, and she really, I mean, gets involved in the stories and cares about the community, and that's what you want. You want someone that's involved in the community and understands the impact that we can have. A lot of the day-to-day, it's just, okay, we have to do the national news, we have to do the business news, we have to do this, that, or the other thing. But it's those impactful stories that people tell. And I think at Channel 3, we had some of the best storytellers. Joe Holden, excellent storyteller.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I did reach out to him. I did let him know in advance that I was having you on. And so now we're going to get to within Joe Holden in reference to this, because he is hosting the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Yes.
It used to be the Jim Donovan version of the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
And I was so thrilled when I found out that he was doing it. So now, first of all, I should point out that the on-air people that do the show, we have a lot of support. We have Michael Bradley, who was the former director of the parade. We usually have Karen Boyce McCullum, Father Kevin Gallagher. So they're the color commentary. We just kind of guide the show a little bit. Yeah. But Joe was asking for advice, and I told him, I said, I have one bit of advice. Shut up.
I remember you said that. I remember you said that on your Facebook class this morning in reference to it.
Just don't talk, particularly when there's an Irish band playing or there are dancers, because that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear me talking. Mind you, if there are groups marching, that's one thing, because you would describe with your, but I would shut my mouth. The minute that thing came out, I'm like, okay, here comes the dancers from the, whatever school of dance. I'm not going to, because then I'll get the hate mail. I didn't know that. I said, just do that. And we had a very nice, the other night, they gave us all sashes. Because
I was just about to get to that. I was about to get to it. For those Bookface followers that are watching right now are already aware. To those that are on YouTube and that are going to be watching this later on PhillyCAM TV and listen to this later on WPPM-LP, which is the PhillyCAM, which is an old city. Jim is one of the 2026 inductees to the Ring of Fame for St. Patrick's Day, which is a great honor. And to be honest with you, I am half Irish, even though sometimes I could do a Scottish accent because I learned later on my grandparents were from Scotland. So, my glasses just fell. Oh well. So I am half Irish and half Spanish.
Oh, that's a great combination.
Oh yeah. So I turn around and I would turn around and tell people I'm a half spick. I'm an Irish spick. So, but congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, awesome. I was surprised. The last week that I was at the TV station, yes. I was doing the noon show with Janelle, my co-anchor.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, that whole week, they had surprises for me. I told people, I said, I don't want to know anything, whatever you do, because I don't want to get her. And all of a sudden, I saw the organizers from the parade come into the studio, and I thought, oh, they must be giving them a tour.
Yeah.
And then I saw the kids dressed up in their Irish garb, the dancers. And I'm thinking, why are they should be in school today? Now, mind you, the show's going on, but I'm seeing them off the corner of my eye.
Right. Yeah.
And I saw the sash.
Yes.
And that's when it dawned on me.
Yes.
And I mean, that whole entire week, I had a difficult time keeping it together because here then they presented me and said,
I will say that. I
was like, this is not. I'm an emotional sponge and I'm an emotional wreck. So, I mean, I was trying to hold it together, and I've mentioned it many times. My grandparents all came from Ireland. Mm-hmm. They came with $20 in their pockets pretty much, and they had to start a new life. So for me in 2 generations to be able to be in the Ring of Honor is very special to me. And I will say the station did an amazing job of, in advance of my retirement. They had this thing called the 5 Days of Jim. And every day I was like, what is going on?
Get to that because there's more to that, folks, that are watching on the YouTube live stream that never watch, that are not from Philadelphia, or, as well as on PhillyCAM and all that. Jim went through a lot during those 5 days, and believe it or not, I managed to catch some of them. And I will say that not only did he get honored once, but twice.
The mayor.
By the mayor of Philadelphia, Sherelle Parker.
Yeah.
Once at the station during his retirement week. The second time was with the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jim couldn't hold back tears. We all saw that. Okay. It believe me, you can go on cbsphiladelphia.com and you might catch it if it's still on there. But
yeah, I think it's still on there. I mean, it was a weird, even though it was planned, and I mean, I knew I was retiring and stuff. It's like when you've done something for it's 39 years.
Yes.
And it's part of your DNA, and to realize that it was, and I was ready. I mean, I was ready I needed something different. I had done everything, accomplished everything I wanted to do.
Yep.
But nonetheless, you realize, oh my gosh. And then for people, I mean, I was getting for the last month that I was working emails and cards from people that I'd helped on consumer problems 15 years ago. And I was like,
I'm sorry. The only reason I was interrupting is because one of those people that he helped, he actually worked with, and actually is the host of the parade, Joe Holden. His family was one of those people that you helped. And I remember that was mentioned.
Yeah.
But I also want to bring back some memories of other things that you were a big part of that happened, here in Philadelphia. Jim, believe it or not, was actually on vacation when Queen Elizabeth passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And being that he was still in London, he was reporting for the station and getting paid while he was on vacation to report about Queen Elizabeth and what was going on, in reference to her and, in reference to King Charles coming to the throne. And he was also the big part of when the Pope came to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very big part of that, and he shared a lot of stories. But he also shared a major a very special story. And matter of fact, it's still he still talks about it now, even in retirement. And that's his second wife, Stephanie Stahl.
Oh, Stephanie.
Yes. You had this.
Adore Stephanie.
Yeah. Yes. And I will say, Jim had the great. I mean, I'm trying to hold back tears because I'm just amazed at this man, and I'm amazed at what I'm doing for him, and what I want to do for him, in reference to what he's looking at. Because as a viewer, as a follower of Jim Donovan's fans on Facebook, and catching those 8:00 in the morning Bookface Live classes. First of all, I want to say thank you for everything that you've done over those 22 years.
Well, thank you, John.
And I also want to thank you to your Bookface followers who came on here and braved their comments through me to you, let you know how much you really mean to them, and how much you did for the station and really changed the station. And I'm going to throw a quick Kate Bilo story for you. And I wanted to say this quick because I have like within 13 minutes to keep it within the hour.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to meet Kate Bilo when she did the Christmas lighting at Rittenhouse Square. Because I'm in Grace Ferry. Okay. So I'm like, 12 route right there. So I got to see Kate Bilo in person. I lost the picture I had of her back then, but I did get to meet her and, took a picture of her, a selfie with her. It was great. It was great, to meet her in person, because you really don't get to know news personalities. And I actually got to know two on another station that actually live in Rittenhouse Square. And I would see them. I actually saw them on the streets. So I got to know them. Also, I didn't mention this to Jim, but I'm going to surprise him with this. There's another friend that we both know. She came on this podcast. She only did 15 minutes because she was very busy. You got to know her on TV by the name of Miss Patty Jackson from WDAS-FM.
Adore Miss Patty. Adore her.
Yes. Well, she was on this podcast. I just forgot to tell you earlier. Like I said, we did 15 minutes. She was actually on the road when we did it.
Oh, wow.
It's actually in the YouTube live section. So you could always go on there and look. Like I said, I think we did 15 minutes. Not many viewers. But I will say to the 9, actually it was up to 11 at one time. If you're all Bookface followers, comment quick to let me know. Besides Brittany and Dorothy and Marie. And I thank you all for coming on and, braving your comments. Remember, your payment is due now to the professor because now he is going to get a lesson in podcasting. A very influential podcasting lesson. This platform, I've already explained to him, is the best cost-effective version. Okay? And yes, he can do this on his Jim Donovan fans Facebook page. But he could also do it on others. And I explained about that. So I would suggest really sticking with this platform because this platform is the best and it guides you through everything. Okay? My logo is my green screen, believe it or not, because if I actually showed you where I lived, I look like a disaster area. Okay. So that's why the logo is the back screen. But this platform is the cost effective. It wouldn't cost you any more than $100 a month in reference to streaming it. Also, in reference to the tuition that you are overdue.
Billions of dollars. Billions.
Yes. Well, you may not get billions of dollars right away, but I'm going to introduce Jim to some people in reference to how their ads can be put on his podcast. Because this is now on PhillyCAM TV and WLLP radio. This is non-commercial, so I couldn't put them on like I want to. So I have to do a podcast separate on that, which...
Oh, I could do commercials. I could go to a car dealership. Look at this lovely car. I drive this car. I always wonder how with these people that get these things, I'm like, what? And that's the funny thing is, in TV news, you couldn't even accept a free dessert at a restaurant. Well, there was one time I was in Rittenhouse Square and I went to dinner and they were so nice. I forget which restaurant it was, but they're like, we would love to give you and your guests dessert. I said, nope. I can't, and I said, listen, it's against the policy. I can't accept anything.
Right.
If we have to do a story about that, maybe they've got, I don't know, rats running around the kitchen in 6 months. I got to do a story. Right. And, but it's a completely different, every once in a while I'll hear on the radio, people will be like, I had my house, insulated by such and such a company. And boy, I'm nice and warm. And I'm thinking, boy, that must be nice to work in radio. We can't even accept a Ritz cracker, without getting in trouble.
Yeah. Well, now you have this opportunity, and I'm also going to introduce you to a gentleman that we actually have a GoFundMe campaign to support this podcast. Because not only do we have it on PhillyCAM TV and WPPM-LP radio coming soon, but we are also working on expanding it to where it's going to Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, LA, and Seattle. So I'm going to introduce you to that gentleman and see how you can get national sponsorship for your podcast.
Listen, Joey, I don't want another job. People wanted me to do a podcast. I'm like, okay, I'll do a podcast. Well, I don't want to work. This is the reason for retirement. I just want to go sit on a beach somewhere in Florida with sunscreen on. So it's like, don't make it too difficult. I'll handle I'm going to give everything to Aubrey, my producer, to say, here.
Well, I'm saying.
You should have seen me. I had to figure out. I've got my laptop here. I bought a little camera that actually sticks right down in the middle. I'm looking straight. Yeah, the eye contact or eye cam or whatever the heck it was. It took me an hour and 15 minutes to figure out how to attach this thing. I'm not technologically advanced. I'm just like, I just want to talk to a few interesting people and see if I can learn anything.
Well, you're still going to do that. I'm just saying in reference to how you're going to make out with it.
Listen, if you're going to turn me into Oprah, that's good because Oprah's making some good money.
Well, like I said, that's what we're going to do. I mean, none of us are going to be like Joe Rogan and get a $250 million.
Well, listen, that's what I aspire to. If I'm going to have to work, I want Joe Rogan kind of commercials. I don't want generic, margarine. I want like the good stuff.
Well, I'm going to introduce you to, like I said, I'm going to give you that information. And I'm going to actually let them know that I sent their information to you because like I said, you're owed. And your students are eventually going to, in a way, be faced with the bill.
Well, I'm hoping that people that do follow me on Instagram and Facebook and X and stuff like that, I'm hoping they, kind of follow me into this podcast world because what I'm trying to, or at least the attempt is going to be to do interviews that I think would interest them. And, this year, my whole thing is about healthy minds, healthy finances, healthy bodies, just kind of getting everyone in because that's the one thing that I liked about consumer reporting was I could teach people different things.
Right.
And that's what I'm hoping the podcast will allow me. I mean, yeah, it's nice to interview entertainers and stuff like that. But there has to be a hook on what was there something pivotal that other people can glean from their life story. And, so we'll see. But again, I I just like this format. Because I was able to, I followed the directions. I'm like a kid. I'm like, you sent me a link. I'm like, okay, click on this. I'm supposed to write my name and click on that. I'm like, I could do that. It's this, the technology these days. I mean, these kids, you got a 12-year-old that can run a television network. And here I am hunting and pecking through the thing going, how do I get this thing to work?
Well, like I said, that's why I suggest you stay with this in reference to your podcast because of this. And we only have about a couple minutes left, so because if I go over an hour, I have to edit it.
Yeah, and then they go like this. This is us in the studio. You go like this. This means, oh gosh, I got to shut up. We got to go to commercial break.
So, in closing, I'm going to state this, Mr. Donovan. We thank you for the 22 years that you gave us on the air. Again. We thank you for all the fun that you put into those years. And we know that your podcast is going to be a success. It's going to go more than 20 episodes.
Well, thank you.
Believe it or not, to let you know, I lost track after 200. And I've done this for 7 years. Okay? And to you book face followers, you have been forewarned again. It is time to pay the professor. Because this is the opportunity that he has to really make a mark. If he did it during those 22 years, he's going to do it this podcast. And this podcast is going to guide him and hold his hand if we have to in doing it. And I will even vow to be a guest on his for this podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay. Because like I said, he did a lot. He also, did show something that we didn't know about him when he did during Pride Month, when he did the last Pride type public affairs show with Josh.
Oh yeah. Josh Sanders, we did the parade and stuff like that. Yeah. It's all about visibility. It's about visibility in the community, helping the community, doing what you can. Yep. I mean, it's like I was all in. I moved to Philadelphia, and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to plant my roots, and let me get involved here.
And believe me, you did. So, like I said, please follow Jim on Facebook, Jim Donovan Fans. Thank you so much for this honor. Again, like I said, this is the best thing. And like I said, this episode is going to be shown later past St. Patrick's Day on PhillyCAM TV and eventually later on the radio, because later on tonight I actually have a radio orientation for the radio station board. I already went through the TV orientation, and this is one of the episodes that's going to be on TV in the premiere episodes that we're doing for the first month. And and this was an honor.
Well, thank you, Joey.
I really, and he will always be welcome to come back on anytime he wants. And when the podcast really comes on, we want to be there to help him get off the ground with these 20 episodes that he's already got laid out. I've got guests that I told him about beforehand. And in the minute I have left, like I said, all we could do is say thank you for everything. We are, I'm out of words. There's so much that he's done.
You got 60 seconds, Joey.
I know. So thank you so much, Jim, for being on this podcast. Thank you for the 22 years at CBS Philadelphia. And you are always welcome to come back on here anytime. You just reach out to me. We'll schedule you on right away.
Thank you, Joe. And I'll let you know when the thing launches. Again, we're looking at like a summertime launch.
Yes.
And we'll let everybody know. But thanks, everyone, for Bookface Class that tuned in today, or my followers on Instagram or X on TikTok. I appreciate your support over the past few years. And again, I'm enjoying retirement, but I'm going to try something new and see how it works. And hopefully with your support, it will do really well.
All right. And everybody, thank you so much for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you all. Thank you again, Jim.
10 seconds.
I'm done.
Yeah, because then they're going to 5, 4, 3, 2.